Sometimes you think you know, sometimes you know you know. We think we know where Planet X is. When we thought it was passing underneath Saturn and Jupiter, Jupiter acquired new moons, had changes going on in its atmosphere, and we picked up a light anomaly occurring. Looked like an electrical discharge. Pictures taken from a private astronomer showing possibly an electrical connection between Saturn and the brown dwarf. We currently today think it's out on the orbital plane of Jupiter headed towards Uranus. That would put it into a direct Mars-Earth alignment and approaching a 90-degree alignment, or finishing a 90-degree alignment with Venus. So we looked at the earthquake patterns, for which there's been poor patterning for some time now, a few weeks. We see a pattern develop. 331's, we had a precursor, and then what happened is we had a big quake, 6.4, followed by several other quakes, and then ending in a 6.5 on April 5th. Now, that's a typical earthquake clustering pattern of an alignment. They weren't 7-pointers because it didn't involve the sun, it didn't involve Jupiter, is what we're saying. You can disagree, that's quite all right. But every time we theorize where this brown dwarf is, the earthquake patterns, the solar wind patterns, everything seems to fit, and nothing debunks or contradicts the position. We think in this frame, this is a magnetosphere simulation that measures energy, and up the upper right hand corner, we think that's where the brown dwarf is in this simulation, and that the electrons are coming in from the side, which would allow greater penetration from time to time, when, just like there's gaps in a fan, when the spiral opens up, these particles can stream in between the coronal hole streams, and then when the coronal hole streams push through that wave of electrons, then you see certain things fall way off, like our auroras and apparently our X-rays. The red line is 0.1 nanometer to 0.8 nanometers, considered X-rays, approaching gamma radiation. That seems to sustain a level and then just all of a sudden fall off. Same with the gold line always being elevated. That's a 100-fold increase in the 0.1 nanometer on the red line. That's a 100-fold increase from where it normally has been residing. So when we look at the earthquakes, we look at the solar wind, there was nothing there that would indicate that this brown dwarf isn't exactly where we think it is. Now, I'm going to delete some of these. We look at the white light out of Mauna Loa. We look for the moving anomalies there. That glow at the top of the screen used to be over at the 1 o'clock position about 7 months ago. The white helium focusing cone going into and out of the occulting disk is more of a donut now, or a disk in itself, of helium and other items, other gases you find in brown dwarf atmospheres. The white light movement seems to be suddenly in a counterclockwise direction. We've seen it clockwise, now we're seeing it counterclockwise, and it could be an optical illusion. So we try different speeds, we try zooming in, and everything so far seems to look like a counterclockwise rotation. So if you were to use the right hand rule, take your right hand rule and point your thumb in the direction that field is moving, and you will get exactly, pointed up on the right hand side, you'll see your curved fingers are pointing right at you. Oh, wait a minute, that's coming from the position that we think this brown dwarf is. Mars is off to the left slightly, and so is the brown dwarf. If you look in the night sky, you want to look for Mars, and with your infrared binoculars or scope, you want to actually look about 10 to 15 degrees, maybe 20 degrees due north of Mars. Remember, north on the horizon is right and left, North Pole and South Pole. Just point to your poles and you'll get your north in your solar system as well. You'll get that correct. When planets finish their alignments, we have the largest quakes, and usually we have the largest flare. This flare occurred at the end of Mercury alignment, and it was short-lived, but the fact that a tidal influence can make your active regions, which are electromagnetic, become more excited, can be explained through resonance. Because anytime you have an electrical connection, magnetic connection, or even a gravitational connection, there is a resonance that is created on the sun because its plasma is fluid. So you can create bulges or little indentations or collapses in the solar corona. And when you do that, you create vibrations in your sunspot active regions. Then what happens? You excite your active regions to the point where they start shooting and firing off solar flares. But look at the background glow on some of these instruments. We do claim, and because we don't know if we're absolutely right. I can't prove it right this second. I have to go back and check the archives. But it looks like this background glow that you see in these instruments has increased over the years. And notice they occur where the magnetic field lines are, and that's because there are electrons passing through plasma. And the fact that the glow is always there and actually seems to be increasing tells me that apparent disk you see on the white light is, gives off radiation when electrons pass through it. It's called photoionization. So where is this brown dwarf? Well, like we think it's directly in line with Mars and Earth right now. It's traveling towards Uranus. And is above the plane of the solar system by 15 degrees at least from Earth's view. So this glow created, this specific wavelength of glow is created when electrons pass through xenon, neon, argon, and all of those noble gases give off this kind of radiation. Also, fast-moving hot oxygen will give off, when ionized or when electrons pass through it, will give off that kind of radiation. So with this glow occurring in the magnetic loops, makes perfect sense why it's so bright all of a sudden. And all of a sudden is all of a sudden, and if you're talking geologic time. So, what's going on in the sun is actually going on in the solar system. So if you have an increase in energy in the corona due to particle interaction, then what happens to the particles that interact out by Mars and interact in our magnetosphere? Well, you get sustained levels of radiation. So how do you treat and prevent radiation issues? One, the cheapest and most inexpensive intervention you can do is to go buy a bottle of chlorophyll. I use the dropper because it's more concentrated and less messy. But you can buy the big bottle if you want. But the recipe is for 1 dropper of chlorophyll per 16 ounces of water. You do that twice a day for 3 days. You will be very, very glad you did, especially if you're outside a lot. Other things you can take to help you is vitamin C, 5,000 milligrams in 24 hours, but not all at once, and always taken with food. And That's very, very, very helpful. And then CoQ10, very helpful to prevent radiation damage, and you want that on board as well. You can buy that in bulk and make your own pills. There is a slight difference in between product, but if you just get the basic CoQ10 and take it, it's going to make a difference for you. So all of those are going to help protect your fascia against this radiation. And if you don't think the fascia has affected you, look for changes in mood, look for changes in memory and cognition. Sometimes we just can't remember like we used to. Also changes in sleep, the headaches in the back of your neck or behind your eye. Those are common in exposure. The other thing that's common in exposure is breakdown of fascia. The fascia is connective tissue that holds soft muscle to soft muscle or soft tissue to soft tissue. Fascia is most commonly found in the gut and the stomach muscles, but also anywhere where there's a joint. You can have fascia deterioration. When that happens, it's very painful, and many of you have it in your thumbs because you drive and your thumbs and your hands are exposed to this radiation all the time. So what happens when you try to open a jar or a lid? All of a sudden you have excruciating, and I mean excruciating pain. So you need to be on the lookout and aware of what's going on. Till next time, be prepared, not scared.